Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is fade. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way you are likely to hear fade used is to mean to gradually grow faint and disappear. So with this definition, you might think of a particular sound, maybe some music that starts to soften, maybe towards the end of it, and eventually disappear. This verb describes that action. A second way you might hear fade used is to mean to lose or cause to lose color or brightness. Maybe you've heard laundry detergent commercials talk about if you use our detergent, our soap, your clothes will not fade. You're not going to lose the sort of bright color that one has. Okay? A third way you might hear fade used is to mean to lose strength or drop back, especially after a strong start. So I've heard this verb used when people are commentating in racing, be it running or swimming or biking. So someone starts really strong, maybe they are leading or they're near the front, but then they drop back, right? So we would describe they faded as the race continued on. A fourth way you might hear the verb fade used is to mean to lose freshness, strength, or vitality. I think this is something many people start to fear, right? As they get older, are they losing strength, vitality, etc.? You should know that fade is a regular verb. My verb here ends with a vowel, a consonant, and the letter E. So when I go to add my suffixes here, I'm going to drop the E. You're going to see that in the progressive form. So I drop the E, then I add ing to form fading. The past tense and participle forms we kind of do in the same way. So we're only going to have one E before a D and a past tense ending. So we will spell that F-A-D-E-D. And my base verb, fade, ends with a D sound. So when I add that ed ending, I'm going to make an id sound. And I'm adding an extra syllable to the word when I make it in its past tense or participle form. So it should sound like this. Faded, faded. Okay. Now, the verb fade actually has a number of phrasal verbs connected to it. So today's video is going to focus on these slightly different meanings, and I'll talk a little bit about verb tenses to give us that practice as we go along. So let's begin by discussing the phrasal verb fade away. This can have a couple different meanings. One would be to gradually grow faint and to disappear. So it ties back to that first definition we looked at moments ago. An example of this might be fast food restaurants' play areas have faded away due to safety concerns. So in this sentence, have faded away is an example of the present perfect. And I borrowed the ideas in this sentence from an article. It was talking about that. It maybe 10, 20 years ago, it was really common to see kind of these big play areas in large fast food restaurant chain restaurants. But there were accidents and people got sued. And so now, right, they're not as common to see. And many people think they are going to disappear completely. A second way to use fade away is to mean to gradually become thin and weak, maybe to the point of death. So we could be discussing a plant here. It doesn't have to be a person, but sometimes, unfortunately, it does describe a human who is kind of moving to those end stages of life. That's going to be my example here. He is fading away in the nursing home. So this is an example of present progressive or present continuous. And sometimes this happens where someone just kind of reaches a point where maybe their health concerns are just too much. It's kind of too exhausting, and they feel ready for whatever comes next. Now, the next phrasal verb we'll discuss is fade back. This is used many times to mean to move backwards or to recede. An example of this: she led the race after the first lap, but she faded back and finished 10th. Okay, so here we're kind of maybe if you can imagine a pack of runners, a group of runners together. So this person starts out in front, but by the end has moved backwards in the pack. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to fade down. Generally is used with recording, so it could be audio in particular. So you're gradually decreasing the intensity or the sort of loudness of a particular sound. An example of this might be, the sound engineer will fade the music down at the end. So maybe this is part of some kind of production, and we're talking about, or maybe making a prediction here of will fade down, that's for the future, about decreasing that sound. And I'm realizing as I talked about fade back, I forgot to point out that was a simple past tense example. Okay. Now let's try another phrasal verb. The next one is to fade from. We use this many times to talk about gradually disappearing from something or even some place. An example of this: the child actor has faded from Hollywood. So here's another present perfect example. And I think this is sometimes a common story where there's somebody who's really in the public eye because they're a singer, an actor, or something, a celebrity of some kind. And then they sort of gradually disappear from that role. Maybe they didn't enjoy it. Maybe that's not what they wanted for their lives. And so here we're kind of talking about them sort of disappearing from the world of movies and TV. Now let's keep looking at some more phrasal verbs. The next one is to fade in. Okay. This will mean we are appearing or causing something to appear gradually from silence or from darkness. So this phrasal verb can be a little specific to music or film. Whether it's a movie or a TV show, it tends to have a very specific usage here, talking about how something is starting or beginning. An example of this might be, the beat of the drums faded in the background as the guitarist began to sing. Okay, so here we're kind of talking about maybe you couldn't hear a drum at the beginning, and then it starts to sort of build as this person begins to sing. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to fade into. This is usually used to talk about some kind of slow transition from one thing to another. An example of this: as the sunset faded into night, the stars came out. Okay. My first two examples on this page of my notes are both simple past tense. We're kind of talking about that transition of a period or time where the sun is setting or going down. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is fade out. This can have a couple different meanings. One might mean to diminish gradually to silence or darkness. And again, this tends to be really specific to music and to film. So you might think of fade in and fade out here as sort of opposites. So here we have some noise or we have something we're looking at, and it's slowly getting softer or moving to silence, or the screen is kind of moving to black. Okay? An example of this might be fade the last scene out and then start the credits. Okay, so here maybe we have a director, producer talking about kind of the plan. This is an example of an imperative. So the person saying this is giving a command to someone else. Now there's a second way you might use fade out, and that is to vanish gradually from view, or to no longer be able to be heard. An example of this: storms will fade out tonight, leaving us with mostly cloudy skies. Okay, so this is another simple future example. I borrowed this from a meteorologist, someone forecasting the weather. They're making a prediction. They're saying the storms are going to slowly sort of vanish, move out, but there will still be a lot of clouds in the sky. The last phrasal verb we'll discuss today is to fade up. You might use this to talk about something that is slowly becoming or causing something else to become more forceful or more powerful. And again, I think it's pretty common to hear this in connection to sound, in connection to music production. My example sentence here, the guitar will fade up about 30 seconds into this song. Okay, so it's going to become more powerful, maybe more noticeable in this particular song. That's another simple future example. Now, let's spend just a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb fade. And the first word we're going to look at is the noun form of this word. So it has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation. Just like our verb fade, the noun fade also has many different meanings. We'll take a look at 3. So the first way you'll hear fade used as a noun is to talk about the process of something becoming less bright. An example of this might be, this laundry detergent can slow color fade. Right? So meaning our clothes are not going to lose kind of their bright colors as quickly. A second way to use the noun fade is to refer to the act of causing a film or television picture to darken or disappear gradually. An example of that. Would a fade to black be good at the end of this scene? So again, imagine people connected to movies or television production kind of discussing how should this scene end. A third way you might hear the noun fade used is to refer to a particular type of hairstyle. This tends to be where the hair on top is a little bit longer and then it's cut very closely on the sides and the back as well. So I tried to include a picture down at the bottom of the screen here. If you look, you can see the side is cut really, really short here, but there's still kind of a lot of hair on top. So we might say the man in that photo is getting a fade, or he's getting a fade, that particular style of haircut. Another noun you might encounter, particularly if you're a sports fan, a basketball fan, is fade away. This is a type of shot that is made when somebody goes up and they're kind of jumping or falling back or away from the basket. An example of this. She hit a fadeaway to win the game. So again, more common to hear if you're watching sportscasters watching basketball on TV. The last word we'll look at today is the adverb fadingly. So this is describing the manner of something that is fading. So could be becoming less bright or any of those other definitions we talked about earlier. An example of this might be, the hotel occupies 3 floors of the fadingly elegant apartment building. Okay. So what we're really trying to describe here, so fadingly, our adverb is modifying or describing the adjective elegant. So we can maybe imagine a really nice apartment building. It was very sophisticated, very nice at one point, but now its condition is kind of going downhill. So it's fading in quality. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.